Hello. Welcome to Swiss Army Knives with Mark and John. You've got the latest product in from Switzerland. Going to give us a full, detailed review.
Yes, our unofficial sponsor for today, the Swiss Army knife. You just never know when you're going to need one. Could get you out of all sorts of trouble.
I hope you brought your duct tape and a paperclip, possibly a pocket magnifying glass.
Well, I hope you brought your chocolate and chewing gum.
Yes.
And yeah, I can't think of an elastic band. An elastic band. You also need one of them as well.
So we're talking about MacGuffin this week. Is it called?
Similar. We're talking about Matt.
Oh, Macgyver. Yeah. Angus Macgyver is the actual name. Which you only learn here and there, but no one calls him that the show, of course. It's always just MacGyver.
MacGyver, or sometimes just Mac if you're a bit overly familiar with him. Yeah, MacGyver. Wish he was my big brother.
And I do love through the seasons of the show, he starts off with like a bit of a mullet. By the time you get to season 4 or so, we're into like real Lethal Weapon, Mad Max mullet territory where it's really coming out the back. It's like legendary mullet.
Yeah, it is a grade A mullet.
Yeah.
Ultimate mullet club.
Ultimate mullet. But yeah, so we're talking about the first ever episode of the show, of the season of the series, or season 1, but it's, it's the pilot episode, which they shot as a pilot or test, before you go on and get greenlit to do a whole show.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic show, I have to say. A childhood favorite of mine. I'm sure it was for you too.
It was. It's one of the few I have, because it started later than say Miami Vice or Magnum. Those were much earlier shows. This was getting to the second half of the 80s, so I saw more of these or on repeats. I was in an age where I can remember them a bit better. But always the theme song and theme tune, man, just like always just hits me every time. I was like boom, 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 all the explosion and the little cuts of them ducking and diving and escaping death traps like Batman on the old 60s show.
I really had a great time rewatching, or possibly watching for the first time, the pilot, because I'm actually not sure if I would have watched the pilot as a youngster, because one thing I did notice watching the pilot is a lot of the footage that you always see in the opening to the Macgyver episodes, a lot of it seems to have come from the pilot episode. I noticed, especially when it
Yeah,
comes to things like, the countdown for the bomb, or him messing around with switchboards and stuff. It's like, wow, loads of that was taken from this pilot episode, which makes sense. That often happens in TV shows. But yeah, it was a cool experience for me, kind of going back and soaking this all in. I was really pumped for it, and I'm pumped for chatting about it today. It's a great
yeah. I
show.
was looking up little bits of trivia and that about the show during the week, and I mean, I've got the box set which I've been working my way through and through all the seasons, and I'm getting near the towards the end of it. Started last year, so some I've seen multiple times. Some episodes I'm seeing for the first time ever, which is cool. And the later seasons are filmed in Canada, which you tend to know because Richard Dean's Canadian, and if anyone watches Stargate, we'll also film most of that as well. But some of the early episodes were actually filmed in like in around Los Angeles, which I did not know, which explains some of the different background scenery in some of the first season episodes.
I love this. Somewhere in Central Asia,
Yeah, they call
somewhere.
this the opening gambit or whatever story things. It became like a little motif from MacGyver. We would get a little pre-credit sequence where he's on some mission or doing something, and it's very like James Bond style. It's like the opening of a James Bond movie. He's doing some risky, dangerous thing that with his unique skills, and he saves the day or the person or gets the intel or bomb, whatever it is. And then that segment ends, and then we go to the credits and the main show. And usually the main show has nothing to do with what's in this opening. It's just a little frontispiece to sort of get us warmed up.
Yeah, a little appetizer before the main course. And it's really, especially now for this pilot
And
episode,
the voiceover.
if you want to talk about, making a splash and, kind of putting your best foot forward, so to speak, it's a great way to open up the story with the whole, this mountainous region, and him doing the Mission Impossible style scaling
Yeah,
of the rocks. And I always get a little bit, whether it's cliffhanger or anything else, where you're watching like that, I'm like, man, how can people do that and not just be completely, even if you're totally trained and,
yeah.
prepared? I don't know. I don't think mentally I could ever
Just
hack.
the risk.
Yeah, it's too much.
You might get away with it a couple of times, but a bit of wind, a missed foot, cracky rock that breaks, and gone.
Yeah, all you have is your pick to rely on to, like,
Yeah,
keep you hanging up there. But yeah, so we see this awesome opening shot here, and we see our main character Macgyver scaling the side of a mountain somewhere in Central Asia, and he comes across the crash site of a downed US military aircraft. And what do you reckon, like, about these guys? So it says
yeah.
somewhere in Central Asia, the guys he's kind of taking out.
They look kind of Mongolian
Yeah,
looking, or something like that to me.
yeah, maybe that's a kind of it. It's probably done on purpose. I'd say let's keep it specifically
Vague.
big, so we're not tying it down to one nation, or one
Yeah,
region that
not
we
trying
may
to
or may
like
not be friends with.
typecast or say anything negative about a particular group or people. It feels like it's generic on purpose.
Yeah, it's some type of Soviet sponsored military group anyway, because they're all using AK-47. So that's our
Yeah,
first kind of, and it's a good, the AK-47 is like the classic weapon of the
go
baddie.
to.
Yeah, your go-to. Oh, look,
Plenty on
they're
the
using
illegal
Soviet.
trade market.
Yeah, they're using Soviet weapons. They must be bad guys. So we see Macgyver. He scales up the rocks and he starts sneaking up on this encampment. He does the classic, we've seen it in Rambo, we've seen it in Predator, where the hand just goes across the mouth of the guard who has his back
Yeah,
to him, and he takes him out. We don't know whether he's actually fully disposed of him or whether he just knocks him out, but he does the whole, it's like the Indiana Jones switcheroo where he emerges from behind the bushes wearing the guard's outfit so he can
yeah. Just like
slip
He-Man
by.
or his evil horde.
Yes, yes, he can slip by the rest of the security. He manages to get up close to the crashed aircraft, and we see he removes a flare gun from it, which will come into play momentarily. And he's investigating the camp. He's just kind of keeping his back to the rest of the guards so they won't recognize that he's not one of their comrades. And he comes across one of the pilots from the plane, and he actually even mentions, Macgyver mentions, that he wasn't expecting any survivors, but the pilot, he's hanging in a bamboo cage, suspended above the camp, and Macgyver, he asks him where the bomb that the plane was carrying is. He wants to know because there was supposed to be a missile on the plane, and the prisoner tells him that it's in that tent over in the main camp. So Macgyver thanks him, and he throws him his trusty Swiss Army knife and advises him to cut his way out of the cage. And he also makes sure to mention that he wants his knife back when the guy is finished using it. So he leaves the prisoner to free himself while he sneaks up on the tent and manages to sneak his way in underneath without being noticed by any of the other guards. I'll say one thing that's pretty impressive for Macgyver. He does take the hat and the jacket of the soldier that he took out, but he's still wearing his jeans and blue mountain boots, and nobody seems to. None of the other guards seem to notice that this guy is not really wearing the fully correct uniform that the rest of us seem to be wearing. But anyway, he manages to avoid detection and sneak into the tent, and right there in the tent is the missile, the bomb, whatever this dangerous weapon of war is that aircraft was carrying. We see it's here in enemy hands. So
as long as it's got a counting down digital clock, I'm happy.
Oh, of course. Need
and it gets a 0 or 1 before things explode, because they do that so many times in the show, but I love it every time.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
And it's got to get to 0 or 1 like Mission Impossible.
Black background with red digits counting down. That's all I need to to put me in good humor.
I need to wake me up in the morning in the 80s, flashing 12 o'clock, at the wrong time of day, as those things always do.
So Macgyver, he opens up the bomb and he begins work on disarming it. And as he's removing one of the circuit boards, the bomb or the missile, it actually arms. And yes, the classic countdown timer appears and begins to count down as Macgyver quickly starts cutting wires, and he cuts the correct combination of wires to stop the bomb from detonating just at the last second. So that part of the mission's been taken care of, and now it's just a matter of escape. So he rigs up an interesting little distraction, as we're going to become very accustomed to him doing. And in this particular example, he takes a AK-47, which he'd relieved one of the guards of earlier on, and
I think you've been watching Tour of Duty. He's coming up with these little improvised traps.
He hangs it facing downwards from a tree, and he also has some twine pulling against the trigger of it, and he also lights some matches. As the matches begin to burn, the string catches fire. Some type of action takes place, and it causes the AK-47 to start shooting by itself. So this distracts all the guards in the camp. They go rushing over to the area where they hear the gunshots, and this allows Macgyver and the prisoner to get a little bit of space and start making a run for it. However, the distraction, it doesn't last too long, and they're quickly spotted by the rest of the guards, who open fire upon them, and they're backed over to the cliff edge, essentially the same cliff that Macgyver had scaled earlier. So it looks like, oh, look, it's a dead end. It's a big drop. We're done for. But oh no, Macgyver, he grabs the prisoner, kind of pulls him towards him. He takes out the flare gun this we'd seen him acquire from the aircraft earlier, and he kind of breaks the top of it a bit so the barrel's kind of warped, and the prisoner's like, "What are you doing?" And MacGyver's like, "I'm making a rocket thruster." So as the guards start opening fire on them, they both jump off the side of the cliff while the prisoner is kind of screaming. Also while MacGyver shoots the flare, and it acts as this kind of rocket to propel them off the side. And once they get away from the cliff a bit, MacGyver pulls a cord, and out springs a parachute, and they're able to parachute safely to their, and escape from these evil forces. So what a way to open the show right before we bust
They
into
did
the
that
classic MacGyver intro.
one of the Bonds. I'm not sure if it was the Timothy Dalton or Roger Moore, but he goes off the cliff, and then you see the Union Jack parachute come out.
Yes.
That was very memorable. But I love the way the MacGyver opening sequence and the whole style of it, like, borrows a little bit from James Bond, a little bit Indiana Jones, a little bit Mission Impossible, and kind of meshes them together in a way that's just like good fun adventuring. Looking at my cheat sheet in the plot. So what he was retrieving was a top secret Pentagon rocket. So it is another MacGuffin thing. It's like it's a rocket, but it's not an ordinary rocket. There's something secret about it. We have to get it back and can't let the, fall into enemy hands.
Interesting. Well, he succeeded, and he succeeded in style, as he always does.
Yes.
We have to take a moment, definitely, though, to appreciate the actual opening intro music and intro kind of
The
video.
music in the opening sequence, one of the best ever. And it's got stiff competition when you've got like Miami Vice and Magnum PI and other shows, other ones we're talking about, but shows that have legendary opening montages of action and cool stuff and wicked themes. Like, there's so many great 80s ones, and this one's just way up there with the best.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Always just gets the blood pumping, the MacGyver theme.
I like when he gets the map and goes down the sand. That's just such a cool one.
Yeah. And like I was saying, you'll see it obviously in these screens, but as I mentioned earlier, a good few of the kind of famous montage moments from the main title actually came from this pilot. At least I imagine for the first few seasons. I think they always change it up a little bit as the seasons progress. But yeah, so we get to see where MacGyver lives.
Yeah, he changes, and just every season he's in like some different place, and they never kind of really tell you about it. He's just kind of like, well, I'm crashing here for a while,
How would you describe this facility?
It's like an observatory, but slash museum, and it doesn't really make any sense because it's not an apartment, and you wouldn't live there.
Yeah, it's not an apartment. But yeah, because like there's times when you'll walk out of that room with the big where all the telescopage is set up, only to like walk into like a really normal looking kitchen that clearly is in an apartment.
Yeah. Which is clearly just a set, nothing to do with the observatory.
But yeah, we see
they change around a few, because in later seasons he's living on a houseboat, which Jack Dalton steals all his stuff one time for no reason out of. Another time he's just in another regular apartment somewhere that looks more ordinary. It changes around. They don't really comment on it. It's just kind of the background to get a bit of exposition going, and then he's off on another mission or whatever.
And he's a big brother MacGyver. He's one of the, it is a real thing, or at least it was a real thing, where you'd have kids maybe from underprivileged backgrounds, or just whatever the situation is, where they could be kind of mentored, or kind of like put in contact basically with older people who would like look after them and show them the ropes and do stuff like that. There's even that famous Simpsons episodes where Bart gets his own big brother, and Homer becomes a big brother to some other kid. But so we see that's kind of MacGyver, what he likes to do in his spare time.
They do have episodes and background stories where he's got very Christian sort of values, and he's always involved in some kind of community projects and other things. And sometimes, which there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes some of the plots in later episodes get derailed to the point where it's like there's a whole episode where it's like a Christmas pageant in a soup kitchen or something, and it's fine. But what happened to the adventuring? It just kind of there's ones where where clearly that was a different writer working on certain episodes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, it's time we see a different side of Macgyver, you know.
Yeah.
Or we want the audience clearly wants to see more of his charity work as opposed to his adventuring
Well, if
and
you're watching
exotic
Indiana
adventure.
Jones, then all of a sudden he spends like an hour of the movie in the soup kitchen, like, well, can that be 5 minutes? Does it need to be an hour?
Exactly. So yeah, but we see, look, he's an all around good guy. He's mentoring this young man and showing him the ropes in life, and we're quickly whisked though. They cut to a desert location, and we see a limo traveling towards a facility. It looks like a scientific kind of lab and research facility, and the limo enters. It looks like it's kind of high security on the inside, and
Oh, they've
an
got
elderly
rumors they've got
professor.
lasers and chemicals in there. It's very high tech stuff.
Yeah, well, when we get a kind of rundown later on of what they're actually doing in this lab, they may as well just say, "Oh, well, we do everything here." Because it seems like there's like,
Pretty much. It's like, remember when
yeah,
Hulk
there's
got
like
exploded into the desert and Bruce Banner and the Hulk probably happened here. It's like, it's that sort of place where it's doing things they shouldn't be doing.
there's like nuclear stuff going on. There's like vats of acid. There's like chemicals.
Yeah.
There's stuff to do with the ozone layer. There's like
Yeah.
all sorts of research
Just
going on.
every one of those things that could possibly go wrong in one location. So when one system fails, everything's going to fail and cause a massive problem.
Yes. So we see an elderly gentleman step out of the limo, and he's greeted by a beautiful young woman, and he seems to be a professor, or at least a scientist of high regard, doctor something or other. I already forgot his name, but and he is introduced to another elderly gentleman who's also a doctor, and they're friends. They obviously work in the same field, and they've had this type of or this sort of like long distance chess game going with one another, where they've clearly been playing each other in chess, even though they're in different parts of the country doing research and what have you. So as they're kind of catching up with each other, they begin picking up where they left off the last time they were playing chess. And as they're discussing life and things in general, we see this underneath one of the tables. There's a digital counter counting down once again, and we see there's what looks to be a bomb. We see the wires there collected or connected to the plastic, and the countdown, it counts down, and boom, big explosion, rocks the lab, bunch of people injured, a few people killed, chaos ensues. Who are you going to call?
Well, you get his I don't know, state whoever he works for friend calls up Macgyver and says that they got the lab where this explosion's caused problems, and there's going to be a highly corrosive acid's going to start leaking out, and it's going to start contaminating the water supply, make all kinds of crazy, horrible problems. And by the way, things have collapsed in there. We're going to send you in and see if we can. Just one guy. We're not going to bother the team of emergency workers. We'll just send the one guy, and then hopefully he can fix everything.
Yeah. And no pressure, no pressure. And I know I say that sarcastically, but the guy actually, in fairness, which is said a few times in different Macgyver episodes, he is always generally asked, or it's mentioned to him, Mac, you don't actually have to accept this job, or you don't have to go on this mission. But Macgyver, he's a top dude. He's not gonna refuse to help the people in this dire situation. So he agrees to it, and they set off towards this facility, which is really, like I mentioned earlier, it's in total chaos from all these explosions. It's like a multi-level subterranean
If
lab
you get to the
structure. So
bottom level, I bet there's zombies and Umbrella Corp or something at the very
oh
basement. That's what it feels like. That kind of place.
yeah, it definitely feels like that. There was two things I was constantly reminded of when rewatching this pilot, and that was Metal Gear Solid and Resident
Yes.
Evil. Like the deeper he
Yeah.
went into the facility, it was just more and more of that type of
Yeah. The more
environment.
shenanigans and secret stuff and like what's going on in this place. It's big trouble.
I love as well, of course, is it's a little bit of
Got some mood
a
lighting.
trope in these type of shows, but we have the mustache suit who's just like, oh, we can't do this and we can't do that, and
It's Captain
how are you
Explainer.
going to do that? Yeah, it's like, you've only got 5 hours to do X, Y, Z. There's no way you're going to do it, and I'm not going to be helpful. I'm just going to be awkward and constantly, question your methods and not listen to your advice. You need one of these
Yeah,
guys in every disaster situation
for
to,
sure.
just to make things a little bit harder for our heroes. So
We get to meet
MacGyver, he
Pete, who becomes a recurring character in the show.
that's right. That's right. He does. He does. Um, MacGyver, he's kind of, he's taking in the situation. He's asking questions, and he asks, have you determined the cause of the explosion? And Mr. Suitman is pretty much like, well, it had to be accidental because this is a top flight. This is top security facility. There's no way that somebody could have come in and deliberately caused an explosion. And MacGyver's kind of like, well, we'll see. And he gets some more information. They tell him the situation, what's going on with the acid. There's also an issue with making your way down to the facility because you're going to have to go through an elevator shaft that's got like laser beams that can like slice you in half and do all sorts of nasty things to you if they touch you.
Yeah.
There's also a gas leak on one of the levels as well. So he's
Also, this sequence here, they definitely. I mean, there's a few sequences like this in various films and TV, but I feel like this exact moment with the laser beams and the cigarettes, this is a Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, 100%. 100. Just told him Metal Gear Solid straight away.
You've already got 2 cigarettes going, and it's like, man, I just really need that 3rd cigarette. Got to get that fixed, man. So only time you see MacGyver smoking 3 cigarettes at once in the show.
Yeah, and there was a nice moment earlier where he'd asked the guy, did he have a cigarette? And when the guy like offered him one, he just took the whole box.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He must really
there's
wanted that cigarette. He
yeah,
just
he
waited
is
until he crawled into
nicotine
the
addict.
tunnel. They're going to smoke a while once.
Yeah. Hey, smoke 'em if you got 'em, ain't that
Yeah.
MacGyver's
But yeah,
motto?
famously not a smoker, also doesn't like guns like Batman. He doesn't like or use guns because when he was a kid, something happened where they don't always tell you, but in the background, something happened with a childhood friend got killed, but it's not explicit whether he did it or the friend accidentally shot him. But something to do with guns in his childhood is like a trauma thing where he doesn't like guns.
Yeah, because even when he sparks up the first cigarette, you can see he's all like, like, so he's clearly not like a seasoned smoker. But yes, he manages to do the old, as what we would call the old Metal Gear Solid trick. But he does the trick
Yeah,
basically where you puff a load of smoke into the area so you can actually see where the laser
yeah.
beams are.
Ironically, if it worked, it would actually break the laser and set the alarm off. Is what the smoke would do.
We also see that he hatches a plan to destroy the laser beam security setup. He takes out what he calls his favorite pair of binoculars, and he breaks them open and takes out one of the mirror lenses, and he uses it to deflect or reflect one of the laser beams into the mechanism that's actually, putting them out, and it explodes and takes out the entire laser beam setup. I know I'm saying laser beams a lot, but I
Yeah,
just love
you
saying
got to say it as many
those
times as you
words.
can. We've got to get it in there, man, while the laser beams are there. And it does remind me of one of my favorite episodes of the old Dreamland podcast from several years back. There was one where Melinda would talk about that her father was giving this talk about lasers, going, and it's like, you never look at a laser.
Yeah, but if we haven't realized already from watching the opening kind of moments from the show, like, we're only at this point probably in the show runtime, you're probably like 15 minutes in maybe, and you've already seen MacGyver just do at least 6 or 7 cool things, like, and just demonstrate that he's like a can-do guy in pretty much any situation. So he manages to take out this laser setup and make his way further down into the facility, and he's kind of walking around. He's searching pretty claustrophobic areas he's kind of going through as well. Like, he's like crawling through like damaged air shafts and stuff like that while he's making his way further down looking for survivors. He's also been equipped with two-way radio as well, so he can keep in touch with the guys up in operations while he's making his way through the facility. But so far it's looking pretty grim. The explosions caused a lot of damage, and he hasn't come across any survivors yet. Is that a
Just remember,
laser
safety
you're armed with?
warning: never look at a laser. Don't do this. Don't do this at home. Never do it.
Don't do it when your cat's around unless you're willing to spend time playing with him.
Yeah, that's what those are for the cat to chase around. He loves doing it every day. But yeah, it's a pretty serious situation though. You got this cave-ins like in mining and that, where it's all caved in. You got trapped people. You got lack of oxygen. You got leaking dangerous chemicals. It's just an absolute clusterfuck.
It's a real testament though to the showmakers here though as well. Like everything we've seen so far looks like it could have been in an actual theatrical movie. Like the sets are very impressive. The locations have been really impressive so far. It looks. I'm always kind of shocked when we go back and watch some old TV and see how good it actually looks, especially when you're watching a good transfer onto like modern day DVD or HD or anything like that, where you can really appreciate. You can just kind of appreciate. Wow, they actually poured a significant amount of money into this.
Yep. They spared no expense on that pink mood lighting or the other lasers, which I love. I love those colors.
So yeah, Macgyver, he's making his way through the facility, and he comes to a point where it looks like he's going to be totally blocked from going any further, because the shaft has been blocked off by loads of fallen debris. But he manages to rig up. There's like a fire hose and like a fire hydrant on the far wall. He's able to slip the nozzle of the fire hose under some of the debris, and then he's able to activate, I guess, the water to pump the hose up, which then forces the debris to move as well. Once again, just demonstrating his knowledge and skills perfectly.
Yeah, they had consultants for not just the pilot, but for the whole season of the show, of actual scientists that would like contribute like ideas and things. And then as the show progressed, they actually got fans to write in and had like contests and stuff, fans to write in ideas and suggestions for other little sciencey stuff for the show. And a lot of that actually made into later season episodes, which was cool.
His plan, it's successful. It moves the rubble, and he's able to make his way into the section where most of the surviving workers are. So we got a lot of lab technicians who are injured and hurt, and we see the beautiful young lady from earlier on who'd kind of introduced the two old doctors to each other. She's very panicked and upset, and Macgyver's trying to calm everybody down, and just as he's kind of making or trying to get everybody to make their way out, he kind of lets slip that he's going further down into the complex to look for the two doctors, because they're still alive. Operations have been getting kind of on and off chatter from them through the intercom. So Macgyver, now that he's found the majority of the workers, he pretty much tells them to make their way back up by themselves, while he goes to continue on to try and find the two old doctors. But the girl whose name escapes me, lovely looking woman, but she's adamant on helping Macgyver go through the facility to actually find the good doctors, because she's emotionally invested clearly with one of them and wants to make sure that he gets out alive. So Macgyver initially, he's like, "No, love, you're not coming with me. Like, you're probably just going to be more of a hindrance than a help." But she insists, because she actually knows the facility, so she'll actually be able to show him where to go to find them. So he reluctantly agrees, and they both set off, further into facility to try and find out what's going on with the good doctors down below. And as they make their way further and further through the facility, we see that, once again, the explosion that's caused total chaos. There's like gas leaks, there seems to be acid leaking from various orifices throughout the facility as well. Like at one point, the KARL goes to try and open a fire door, and Macgyver just grabs her and he puts a little bit of wood up to the door, and it just catches fire instantly. Like, so you don't want to walk into that room, whatever chemicals are spilling out in there and
Definitely
causing
not.
chaos. Definitely not. That's the umbrella room right there. We don't know what's going on in there. But we see as well as they make their way through the corridor, there's like a smashed vending machine and a load of chocolate bars on the floor, and
That or
Macgyver
Legos.
starts. Yeah, yeah. Macgyver starts gathering up the various chocolate bars, and the girl's like, "What are you doing? Like, how can you think of chocolate at a time like this?" And Macgyver's like, "Oh, we might need it for later." He's thinking ahead about something. I like the way this is shot though as well. You can kind of, and I'm guessing an American could definitely identify lots of brands of this chocolate, but they shoot it in such a way that you don't really see logos and stuff. They're obviously trying to avoid any type of copyright and whatnot. But it looks like a couple of Hershey bars that Macgyver manages to stuff in his bag before they start making their way further along. And in another little Resident Evil style moment, there's a bit where they set off an alarm and loads of emergency doors start closing, so they have to like leg it through the corridor and get through the doors before they get sealed in, and they just barely
Yeah,
make it.
roll under the door and make sure you got your whip in your hat before it traps you in.
100%. And we see here, yeah, we finally get to see what's going on with the two old geezers, and one of them had been unconscious, but he's since woken up, and he's actually shocked that both of them are still alive. He's like, "What? We're still alive? I didn't think we would have survived an explosion like that." And the other guy's like, "Yes, it really is a miracle that we both managed to survive. This is great," even though the other guy doesn't seem too happy about it for some reason, which we'll find out the reason why later on. So at this point, Macgyver and his newfound friend are starting to get a bit fatigued because they've hit a brick wall, so to speak. The next area they have to traverse is actually essentially a gas chamber. It's been filled with gas that's leaking out. There's no way you're going to last long if you enter the room. So Macgyver he radios back up to operations, and he's like, "Look, there must be a way of flushing the air in here to get this gas out." And the
We
guys up
didn't build
there, they're
any
like,
kind of safeties into this facility whatsoever. No emergency exits. That's just a key feature of this government facility.
and yeah, the guys in operations are like, "Oh yeah, look, we do have ways of venting it, but the control console has been damaged, so you won't be able to switch it on basically to vent the air."
I hope
Well,
the console's on another level and inaccessible and damaged. That's really the three things I'm looking for in this design of this place.
yes, of course, make it as awkward as you possibly can. But Macgyver, he's not going to let this stop him. He takes off his lovely plaid shirt and he rips it up, and he tells his friend to wrap it around her nose and mouth, and then he wraps another piece around his nose and mouth, and he smashes in the window of the area, and they both go running through. He runs all the way across to the far side of the room where the control console is, and immediately starts working his magic with the electronics to get the power restored, get the console working, and get all the gas vented out of the room before they both die. And he does this in once again an incredibly fast fashion. Like by the time he's like breaking the window, moving across the room, doing all the stuff with the circuit board, he does this all like in under a minute. It's one of the most impressive feats you'll ever see. But of course, it's just a normal day for Macgyver.
It is like he has like mass like engineering skills, science skills, this and that, mountain climbing, bit of everything. But he does rely heavily on the sciencey skills. But it would still be hard to know if you're pulling apart a big console exactly what's connected to where if you've never seen it before. But But if the guy's talking them through it and telling them something about it, it's a bit more believable. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, like he's doing this all while struggling to breathe in a room full of noxious gas, which
Yeah,
makes
which
it
if you tie the hanky thing
extra
around,
impressive.
wouldn't work for gas like that. If it was like, say, bushfire smoke, they tell you, I mean, obviously, proper mask is good, but if you got nothing, a shirt or something, wet it, put water on it, then put it around because it makes more of a barrier. Whereas for highly noxious chemicals like that, the particles will be much finer, and it's better than nothing, but it wouldn't let you work or do anything in the room. It's still going to get you really quickly.
And we see now our mustached suit dude from earlier. Of course, he's always the harbinger of bad news, and he lets everybody up in operations know that, look, this acid leak on the lower level is still not being contained. We know Macgyver and a couple others are still down there, but if they can't get this stopped within the next half hour, we have no choice but to blow up the facility, because if that acid reaches the rivers, there's going to be major contamination.
Can we
Yada
get a
yada yada.
countdown? Can we get another digital clock
Oh yeah, yes we can, and
in the budget?
I love the way this digital clock. It's not confined to a physical clock. It's actually an
No.
overlay on the screen, which makes it
Yes.
even more
Like
important.
24 style, like Jet Bauer's going to turn up any minute if you keep playing that bloody digital clock on the screen.
Of course, Macgyver can't be warned of this situation because he lost his two-way radio earlier on, so there's no way to reach him and let him know this that what's happening is happening. So previously Macgyver probably thought he had a couple of hours, maybe more, to do this stuff, but now there's like a half-hour countdown to when this facility
Yeah.
is going to be
And this is the
blown
part
to
where
high hell.
you want your higher ups to go, by the way, there's also a volcano next door and there's mutant zombies in the basement. Just so you know, just be careful. And the clock's counting down. You've got 29 minutes, get to
Some more Resident Evil like areas
it.
being traveled here, all these like pipes and corridors, and you're just waiting for like a liquor
Bit
or
of
something
ducting.
to jump down. Spooky area, but I love to see it. And once I know you've mentioned it a couple of times now, but I actually do love the lighting in this as
Yeah,
well. I
it's
just
funny.
love this
It's not
marvelous.
on purpose, but it melts into our background here too. That happens
Yes,
to be too.
we're matching up well
Yeah.
today. So they're exploring around this area, and they finally come across the vat where the acid is leaking out of. And of course, the lady, she's like, oh no, look, what are we going to do? It's a big crack in it. We're never going to be able to stop it. So Macgyver's like, okay, if you can get up on my shoulders, I'm gonna give you something to plug that leak. And she's like, well, what are
Just a
you gonna
very
do?
sexy moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But luckily Macgyver, he's a gentleman, so he's not like upskirting her or anything when she's like standing on his shoulders. But she's like, well, how are we going to block it? And he starts taking out the chocolate bars, and it's like, oh, well, this is like, to you and me, this is just chocolate, but the acid, it's like sucrose and whatever other chemical mix, and it will actually, once it hits it, it will actually form a kind of a paste that will essentially block up the leak. So he very dangerously um gets her to go up on his shoulders and start shoving the chocolate along the crack. Of course, even though they're in a lab, and I'm sure if they'd taken a few minutes, they could have probably found, maybe, I don't know, a pair of gloves or
Yeah,
something. Just
gloves. Use another bit of clothing, something as a barrier so you're not touching the bloody chemical.
because especially she's doing the really dangerous part. Like, she's up on his shoulders in her bare feet, shoving pieces of chocolate into a leaky acid hole, essentially. Like, what if he slips and what happens to her?
Nothing pleasant, that's for sure.
But I wish I'd watched this episode, before we did our discussions on the Alien movies, because we would have had a counter for the acid for blood. If all the Marines had just been armed with like chocolate bars, they could have like sorted that shit out straight away.
This feel like a fad movie. Aliens armed with the Marines armed with the chocolate bars.
It's like, oh, it's melting my arm off. Here, quick, use this. So anyway, MacGyver's plan, it is successful. They managed to stop the acids leak, and they also find a working intercom that's able to contact the two scientists in the lab down below, or should I say adjacent. They're actually next door to them, but it's blocked off by more rubble. So MacGyver, once again, he's quick thinking. He asks for some. First of all, he asks the girl, what are they actually making in this particular lab that we're in now? What did they study? And she's like, oh, it's like metallurgy. And he's like, right, metallurgy. Okay, go find me some, liquid metal. And he gives her a little laundry list of stuff to go and find. Get me a beaker, fill it with water, do this, do that. So he sends her off to run a few errands, and she brings all the mixture back to him, and he makes a bomb. Now, someone who knows about chemistry and the like would probably understand exactly what he does. A lot of the time when I'm
That they
watching
did,
MacGyver, I
in the writing of the notes, they did purposely leave several things out to avoid anyone making an actual real bomb out of chemicals at home.
yes, yeah, I imagine, like, I'm sure the science is sound, but I can't really question it because I honestly don't know. I just trust that MacGyver knows how to do this stuff. So he makes his improvised bomb, and he's able to blow a hole through the wall so they can both now enter the room with the two scientists. And we would assume that the two scientists would be delighted to get out of here, and one of them definitely is, but the other dude isn't, and he pulls a gun, and he's like, no one's going anywhere. It was me who caused the explosion. I was the one who wanted to blow up the
Yeah, it
lab.
turned out it was Liquid Snake or a clone or something, and he's just not happy with any of this.
But MacGyver's like, well, I kind of figured that it wasn't accidental because earlier on he had found traces of plastique, and he just knew that because there was just too many kind of things kind of going in the favor of it being done on purpose, and his suspicions were correct. But the dude, he's got a gun in them, and he explains, look, we were studying how to basically save the ozone layer, but we kind of inadvertently also managed to create like a weapon that can use like lasers in space to like target towns and cities and totally obliterate them. So they made like a
Oh,
super weapon by
I
accident.
didn't pick up on that, but is that a reference to the old Reagan Star Wars program? Because that
I
was an
think it
actual
must
thing they
be.
were trying to build that didn't waste millions on. It didn't work out, and that people got real paranoid. They're going to start lasering us from space.
And that seemed to be what had happened here, or what they thought was going to happen here. So he's like, look, it was going to become a super weapon. I couldn't let that happen. So I hatched this plan to blow up the facility. And the reason I invited my other scientist friend here was because he's the only other guy who's a leading researcher in this field. So I wanted to make sure he was dead too, so nobody could continue on the research, which is another thing
It's
that you
just
just
an
love
overall
because,
tops nice guy.
yeah. But I just love the fact it's like it's still back in the day. A lot of this research, it's pen and paper, it's all this stuff. There's obviously no computer records or
Yeah,
anything like that. Like once these two guys die, that's it. Nobody's going to be able
that's it.
to
Sorry,
continue on this
Ronnie. The
research.
Star Wars program's going to fail.
So the dude, he goes to actually open fire, but MacGyver's mate, the lady actually jumps in front. Yeah, actually, if you get a chance, will you look up what her name is? Because I feel bad this whole time. I've just been calling her the lady
Yeah,
or the
I
girl
will.
because she's a good actress. So I don't want to be doing her a disservice, or any more of a disservice than I've already put in her. But she jumps in front of the dude, and he doesn't accidentally, he shoots her right in the gut, it looks like, right in the side. And MacGyver, though, with the distraction, he's able to like punch him and knock him out. But she's like, look, um, I'm not going to make it, and we're not going to make it out of here. And MacGyver's like, oh no, don't be silly, we're getting out of here. And she's like, come on, there's no way out, and we can't communicate with the surface. And look, don't feel bad about it. You did everything in your power that you could. And then MacGyver's like, "That's it. You're a genius. Power." So he makes his way over to another like electrical console, and he starts messing with the wires, and he's able to switch the lights on and off throughout the facility. So we cut to the operations room where the lights keep blinking on and off, and one of the scientists there realizes that it's actually Morse code. So he translates the blinking lights Morse code, and what it's saying is, "It's MacGyver, I'm alive, we're here, we're trapped downstairs, but everybody's still alive." So that gives them the Iggy to actually call off the rocket launch on the facility. So just in time, they're able to get through to the army unit that was about to launch the missile to blow up the facility and tell them to abort. So MacGyver has managed to save them all and get them all out of the subterranean facility and up
I've
to
got the
the
character's name
surface.
here. So the character is Barbara Spencer, and the actress is Darlene Flugel, which I think it's saying it's like a German name or something like that, something European. It says she was a model and actress in the 70s, and she's in a lot of shows and films and whatnot in the 80s, including Lock Up with Stallone.
Yeah, I thought she looked familiar, all right. And that Lockup is a great movie if we ever get around to that one of the days. So yeah, Barbara there. I'm saying her name as much as possible to make up for all the forgetting I did earlier on. But yeah, look, MacGyver, he manages to get Barbara and the two scientists up to the surface, and it's all congratulations and jubilations. He even gets a little cheeky kiss from Barbara as well before he says goodbye to her. And we cut back to the observatory slash home of MacGyver, and he's playing some indoor basketball in his living area with his little brother friend that he's mentoring, and they're having a cool little back and forth and, talking trash to each other. And we get classic 80s freeze frame on the kid doing the slam dunk at the end.
I love a good
Which we'll
freeze frame
see.
credits.
Love a good freeze frame credits before we jump into the to our credit intro, but our credit closing. But yeah,
Did you recognize? Did you read credits as a kid? Like, I mean, not the little ones, but the big ones that flash up you see all the time. As a kid, I went Henry Winkler. I went the Fonz. It's the Fonz, man.
yes, and yeah, it's weird. As a kid, I wouldn't I wouldn't. I'd be more listening to the music and watching the pictures for the credits for most shows, especially on shows like this and the A Team and stuff. Like it was. I know MacGyver did it sometimes, or would start doing it later, and then the A Team would do it all the time, where they just show you almost a montage of what happened in the episode you just watched when they were playing the outro music. I always kind of like that touch in a lot of these shows of the era.
I do
Yeah,
love a
what a
montage.
gotta have a montage. I do love this show though, man, and I love this pilot. I have to say, it was really really fun. Going back and revisiting it, and even though it's a different type of show, the Magnum PI, there are still similarities. Even the way we
Yeah,
get
you
the
get the
whole
opening narration where they're talking over. When I was a kid, my grandfather told me a lesson about blah blah blah. You get, they both do that sort of thing.
yeah, and I like that. Stylistically, I've always kind of enjoyed it, and it gives you a flavor of the type of main character you're about to be
They're
introduced
always kind
to
of in
and
that
get to know.
problem-solving mode, and the narration's kind of like lighthearted and whimsical, but they're dealing with some like real serious situation where they're gonna have to, figure something out.
You mentioned that you got is it like a box set you got, like a complete MacGyver series you're
Yeah,
watching,
yeah,
or
it's
or
sitting
what?
on the corner. Hang on, I'll get it.
Yeah, I must actually pick up physical copies of this. It's one of those things, and like so many other things, I take them for granted because they've always been
Ba-ba-bum,
replayed.
ba-ba-ba-ba.
Nice,
It's
very
real. It's
nice.
unfortunately a cheap, crappy box that falls apart, but they're just all the individual previous releases sandwiched into there.
Excellent,
Does it
excellent.
say He acts fast and thinks faster. That's season 4. But yeah, they're all in there, except for the one that's out in the lounge that I'm watching, which is season 5 or something like that. Oh, 139 episodes on 38 discs.
Love it. No, I must
Apparently
pick it up.
only Germany got the Blu-rays of season 1 or something, and that was it, and nowhere else in the rest of the world. So it's just DVDs, unfortunately.
Yeah, Blu-ray, and I know we're getting a little bit sidetracked here, but with Blu-ray releases, it's not like that great DVD wave.
Well, they did. I think they did a restoration for the first season of Macgyver Blu-ray just for Germany and nowhere else in the world. So, and that's it. All the other ones are just the regular standard definition DVDs.
Have you noticed with Blu-rays in general this? They're just not covering the same amount of ground as DVD.
No way, they don't.
For this type of stuff.
And the DVD sets are quite watchable, but it is noticeable the degradation and fluff and scratches in the screen. We really could do with full restorations, but it's not going to happen because it's a streaming world now and they're killing physical media, so there's no incentive to do it.
Yeah, unless somebody who loves the material enough does it as a kind of independent project, it's probably not going to happen. But look, we have to.
I hung in there and waited and went, "No, it's not happening." So I eventually got that set last year.
I suppose, look, if we can get at least the best copies that are out there, we get what we can get. But as usual, like, you know, as
it's perfectly watchable on a TV. Like I watch it on my old PS3, and which is not HD TV, and it looks fine. If you go up close to it, it's blurry as heck. But when you're at the back of the room on the couch, it looks fine. It looks as good as it would have been watching on an old CRT back in the day, but just a bit sharper and nicer.
Yeah, well, these like I always praise your screen grabs, and like, you know, if they've come from the DVD, they look good. You know, it does look like good quality.
I got my set out and ripped the first disc and episode so I could get these ones.
Yeah, that was the Macgyver pilot. So we've done Macgyver, we've done Magnum, PI. What's next on BL pilots?
Oh, good question. We're doing When There's a Problem. Maybe you can find them. The A-Team. So that'll be next week's one. And the following weeks will be Knight Rider.
Brilliant. Looking forward to both. And once again, it's always good just to have an excuse to go back and watch things specifically and go back to the beginning, because, you know, pilots, you know, they kind of set the scene for the shows, but the shows that follow aren't always exactly the same. So sometimes we'll see little differences here and there in the pilots that you may not see in the main show. So yeah, looking forward to A-Team next week, and then Knight Rider the week after.
Yeah, it'll be good fun.
Pilot buzz. I would also like to take a moment, if I may, Johnny.
Yes.
I would just like to wish my beautiful wife, Christina, happy birthday. It's her birthday today as we are recording.
I was going to say, you better do that because we're keeping it tight today.
Yeah, I'm going to wish her a happy birthday, many happy returns. I hope she has a great day. We're going on a little shopping trip to Dublin in a while, so hopefully she's going to have a nice day, and I just want to wish her a happy birthday.
Oh, also, happy birthday wishes from me also, and I hope you guys have a good time out.
Hear that, Christina? Happy birthday wishes from Australia, from underneath where we are right now. Crazy. From the upside down land of Oz. That's where Alice went. Yeah, loving these pilots, loving doing the show, and yeah, really looking forward to
I had a
A-Team.
bonus one earlier today with Kiwi GI costumes we made over there. We talked about Tour of Duty, which it was unplanned. He mentioned it a couple of months ago, and just yesterday I'm like, hey, you want to do this? And he's like, yep, you got time? And then we did it like a couple of hours ago. It's like bonus pilot season episode.
Excellent. I'll have to actually catch up on that one later on as well. So that's my evening viewing.
It's uploaded, so just check out anytime and during the week.
Subscribe to Johnny's channel, folks. All the best stuff's here. If it's not, we'll tell you where to go to find it.
Yeah. There's other cool stuff out tomorrow too. Zazel's doing a couple of shows in a row. He's doing another Toy Biz one and another one. I think it's a Joe topic, but he's got all the lads, and they're doing two in a row because I think that's what lines up with like bloody Gaz and Adam and all them dudes. So I'm looking forward to those.
Also,
and Kiwi Jai's doing a live show tomorrow afternoon. He's doing like a big anniversary, thank the supporters and fans special.
And also, comics fans, make sure you check out the show that Johnny did with Gojitron yesterday. That was uploaded.
That was
really great
fun,
show with the DC and Marvel crossovers. Very interesting indeed. So plenty of content to keep you folks busy.
Yeah, there's more coming. Hopefully doing it. Hopefully in the next few weeks I'll get a Batman talk with Jones. But it depends. I've built the show, but when he's got free time, we'll do it.
Yeah, we need to find a way to crack these time zones. We need to speak to Hulk Hogan and find out how you time travel.
Yeah, go to Japan. Start in Japan. Get your Sports Almanac from Back to the Future 2. Get a time machine and just it'll work out.
Yeah, we're gonna crack that shit. We're gonna work out these time zones.
Oh yeah, we're right on the hour mark, so I reckon we'll wind up there so you can go and enjoy your time with your missus.
Okay, folks. Hope you had a good time and take care, everybody.
Take care. Or take off, but come back next time. Come back next time, you hear?